I'm Anne. Welcome to my channel. I am about to share with you a tutorial of this watercolor painting, which I painted a couple of years ago, and it is entirely in a vertical format. So it's been modified a little bit, and I didn't record the entire process. So it's going to be kind of broken up into pieces, and hopefully you can follow along. I've patched it together the best way that I can, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments, so let's get started. The first thing I do is paint a horizon line with a diluted blue color. Then I start to figure out how the horizon's going to look. I paint a halo of yellow that's very diluted for the sun. And I like to paint all of my yellows in a painting first. I find it to be the most transparent and light color, so I use kind of some sloppy ripple effects on the shoreline and across the water. Since I am doing a no sketch on this one, I like to mark out where a lot of the features are going to be, including where the water meets the sand and a lot of the darkest parts of the ocean, which on this particular piece are on the far right side. Now this one's going to require a lot of layering, so I am going to do this first layer kind of diluted and we'll build it up. There is this lovely peach color that blends into the yellow on the horizon, and so I use a flat brush to add that one. And as you can see, it's very, very light, so I'm going to build it up later on. And while it's still on my brush, I add some of it to the water. This is going to have a really cool effect. It's going to have yellow and this peach and then this lilac color. And the lilac contrasts really nice with the yellow golden color of the sand. So this is where the shadow is. I'm going to mark out where that goes on the bottom of the page. And I'm going to add some more yellow ripples. These are darker, and these are going to be primarily centered around where the sun is touching. So this is just kind of random, just using the tip of your brush to make horizontal strokes. It looks more natural to have them uneven, so do that. And then I'm going to add some more of this lilac mixed with blue color on the middle of the right side of the image. I'm going to clean up my horizon line, so I'm going to use a really small brush and use a darker version of that aqua color to clean up that line. Then I'm going to start working on more of the ripples in the blue area of the ocean. I'm using a flat brush to lay down my first wash. This one's really diluted. It's like a mix of that aqua color with a little bit of that lilac color. As you can see, just eyeball it, go kind of lightly. And then I start mapping out the clouds. I use that peach color, and I like to use the tip of my brush and use these like round, dappley kind of strokes to figure out where they're gonna go. And then I use a large flat brush with a very diluted blue to paint over the sky. Usually I do this first, but for some reason I did the clouds first. And now it's the insane layering part. I use the tip of my brush with the diluted blue color and just mark a lot of ripples. I usually start on the left side of the page because I'm right-handed. While I let that dry, I decide to add another layer of this bright yellow color around the sun. This will really make it pop at the end result. So I go around making sure to leave white space for the sun. It is super important in watercolor that you leave your white spaces. I'm adding more smaller clouds that are near the sun, and they're going to have like a yellow underside reflecting the sun's light. And a lot of them are going to have more of that peachy orange color on one side, like this one. I decided to add some white gouache to this one to make it like a brighter side of the cloud. You don't have to do this. I also start mapping out some of the clouds around in the horizon. Those are going to be more this diluted purple color. I use the tip of my brush like you can see here, and I think that makes the clouds look more fluffy and natural. I also have some little tiny clouds, so I use my little tiny brush to add some more. As they get closer to the sun, they're going to be more orange, yellow, a lot of the warmer colors, and then the back side of the clouds, or the ones in shadow, are going to have those purples and blues matching the ocean. We're back to layering the ripples in the water, so this is going to be a lot of patience. You're going to kind of randomly just use the tip of your brush to add ripples. The lightest ripples are going to be near where the sun is coming down, and then they're going to get darker and more distinct as they get closer to the shore. It's always a good idea to use a more diluted color than you think you need to, because you can always add darker watercolors later. It's more difficult, on the other hand, to lighten something once it's already dark. The fun part about this one is that it has so many beautiful colors layered on top of each other, and you can get the tip of your brush to get those tiny little speckles and shadows like I'm doing here, where the sun is hitting the water. The darker ripples are going to be on the far right side of the page, the one that's more in shadow. And like I said, you can kind of skate the tip of your brush across the paper surface to mimic the idea of water. If you need help visualizing this, I recommend go looking at stock photos of the ocean at sunset to get an idea of how it looks. Resist the urge to cover it in ripples. Like I'm kind of covering it here, but like make sure you leave your white spaces. That's going to be like the crest of the wave, and it's going to show a lot of your watercolors underneath as you're layering. So I'm usually pretty careful about where I'm going to leave paint, where I'm going to leave the white space. And that's why on this particular one, there's a lot of diluted layers. The darkest part of the ocean is on the right side away from the sunlight. And then the lightest part is going to be right where that wave hits the sand. And you can see here that the whites will really pop when you have the dark ripples painted on top. This is going to be one of the more meditative parts of the painting process where you're kind of just repeating a lot of the same steps. You're keeping the dark blue ripples, the more distinct sharp ones near the front of the shore, near the foreground, and then they're gonna get paler and they're gonna get more faded as they go towards the horizon. I add a little bit more of those peach spots near the front. They actually make a really beautiful color mixed with the blue. It's kind of a neutral color, but you can see both of them distinctly since it's watercolor and they're layered nicely on top of each other. And the wet brush kind of blends out some of those ripples too. Then I add another layer of that bluish lilac color. This is going to be the shadowed part of the beach, right where the water meets the sand. And then I decide to add another yellow layer, a little bit brighter. This will make the colors even more beautiful. And then in some spots, I think it would look really great with a little bit of white gouache. You don't have to do this too. Like if you feel like you overdid it, you can add a little bit of white gouache to make it stand out. And then I pull my tape apart. You may or may not need to do this. And after all that layering, you can sit back and admire your work. I learned something new with each painting, and this one I definitely learned the value of patience. So hopefully you can take your time and enjoy the process. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can always follow me on Instagram for more, and I will have more YouTube tutorials coming soon.